casters and reloaders, thanks for tuning in. So for today, we're going to be continuing the load development for the 30-06. I'm using something called a robin round technique for the Sierra Match King 168 grain hollow point boat tail. If you guys haven't been following, I highly recommend pausing this video and going back to the playlist on stage 1 and stage 2 to kind of further understand what robin round testing is. For today, we're going to be testing some varget loads at the accuracy window that I found on stage 2. And what we found on that video was that my accuracy window that I did twice seemed to start at 51.3 grains and up to my max powder charge of 52.1. So to kind of recap and make it short before we hit the range, I wanted to go over a few things. Number one, we are also developing a load for the cast lead bullet using my NOE 153 grain spiral point mold. I'm kind of glad that I did stop at 14.5 or 15 grains of HP38 because I was a little worried about leading. I'll show you guys a little video footage of what I found when I borescoped my rifle. So as you can tell from that bore cam footage, I was starting to develop leading around the throat to middle of this barrel. And in case you guys are wondering where I got that bore cam from, I did put a link in the description of this video of the eBay seller. Now I got this thing for around $10 and some change, and it is small enough to go down through a 223-556 barrel. So that's a big plus from that. I really feel it's a really great tool to have if you're wondering what's going on with the rifling, and like I said, it's fairly cheap. Though it isn't 1080p like some of the upper cameras, you're still able to get a good sight picture compared to the naked eye. So like I said, if you're wondering where I got this from, the link is below. So after seeing that, I went to town with a wire brush wrapped with some Shore Boy, and I dipped it in some Hoppe's number 9 and did about 4 passes of that. And then I went to some Homebrew Ed's Red and went to town with that, scrubbing the heck out of that barrel. So I'll show you a footage of what it looks like now. Alright, so some of that lighter picture or lighter coloring on the rifling, I don't think that's leading. Like I said, I went to town scrubbing this thing. I think that's just exposed metal on the barrel after the chrome lining has been worn off. But as you can tell, there's still a little bit of copper fouling left, and I'm going to leave it just as that and continue on with the testing. Now what I feel, like I said, is contributing to the leading is the soft alloy of this bullet, being a 10.4 BHN. So 5 days ago, I went ahead and casted some of these. Oh man, dropping them like Elvis ammo. So, like I said, 5 days ago, I casted some of these, and yesterday I tested the BHN, and it was a 21.8 BHN. That is after sizing and powder coating. I have about 300 back there in a jar, so in about 3 weeks, these may be going up to around 26. But for now, I think 21.8 BHN is going to be hard enough to continue on with the HP38 testing. We are going to start off at 15 grains, and I'm going to work up to 18 grains. I think at 18 grains, we might be or exceed the tensile strength of this alloy. So if I do get some leading, the next rounds I'll be firing are going to be some full metal jackets, some cider rounds, and those should, in theory, clear out the barrel and not affect the performance and accuracy potential of the ladder testing we'll be doing with the Sear Match Kings. Other than that, I kept the brass separate. The headspace of the powder coated bullets, of course, with the lower pressures at first, are not bumping the headspace up, but on the Sear Match King testing, the headspace did grow another thousandths of an inch, and I happened again to check the chambering of a spent brass, and you could tell that it's a little bit tighter, but it isn't too tight to where it was going to affect our testing today. But we're on our third firing of this brass, and probably after today's testing, I will be bumping these back 2 thousandths of an inch. Like I said, I've been only doing neck sizing, and for now, like I said, we're going to be continuing on with the testing. I'm going to start off at 0.2 grains underneath my accuracy window starting charge, and that's going to be 51.1 grains, and I'm going to work up to 0.2 grains over my max charge of the accuracy window, which is going to be 52.3. So like I said, I'm going to start at 51.1 grains, and I'm going to do 3-shot groups in 0.3 grain increments. So that's going to give us 15 rounds to shoot with 5 cider rounds, and the cider rounds are going to be at 50 grains or 50.5 grains, and that will also kind of give me a verified test that at 50.5 grains, we saw that the vertical stringing was going through a transition, and around there is when it started to shoot a lot lower. So in theory, that should put me on paper and go on from the testing from there. So other than that, guys, I'm going to load up some of these cast lead bullets and some Sear Match Kings, and I'll be seeing you guys at the range. Hopefully we could get a sub MOA group, and if we do, I'll be shooting these at long range, probably 1,000 yards. So let's go out to the range, guys. Let's see what these do. I'll be right back. All right, guys, so we are set up. A little different today. We have some other people here at the range, so I'm kind of sharing the land. One's a different spot. We're at 100 yards, and we're going to be doing some cast load testing first. I got my little makeshift chronograph tripod because I forgot mine at home, but I'll make do. But again, we're going to be doing some cast load testing first because my scope is still zeroed out, and go from there. After that, we'll be shooting these Sear Match Kings and see what is grouping at my accuracy window. So let's get on to it, guys. I'll set you up down at the target, and I'll have a video and video. Be right back. All right, so I verified 0, and the first 3 shots I took were over here with the 11 grains. Readjusted for 0 and shot 2 more. And you can see there that these 11 grainers are doing pretty good. So next up is going to be 15 grains, and I'll be shooting up on these targets here. So 15 grains, I'll start in the top left. Well, the last groups I shot got us to a 1834 FPS, and between shots I was taking a look down the barrel to see if I was getting leading, and around 17 grains or 17.5 it started getting a residue that was showing near the throat and also the tip of the muzzle. So I threw my bore cam down it, and this is what I saw. So yeah, you can see that I was starting to get looks like a white residue in the bore cam, and I verified that when I looked towards the muzzle before I cleaned it. I just bore snaked the hell out of it right now, and there was a lot of leading down in there. So I believe that we reached our maximum. Oh man, look at that guy. Yep. Anyways, I think we reached our maximum alloy strength, and you can see there I wasn't getting any kind of grouping. So far, 11 grains of HP38 seems to give us a really good group. So for HP38, I believe I'm just going to stick with that. So for now, I'm done with HP38 on this cast load. I'm going to go ahead and start demilling the last 5 rounds I have here, which I went up to 18 grains, and I'm going to start working up loads in Hodjon 4198. They're going to give us a little bit lower pressure and hopefully a higher velocity. So barrel cooled down, it is nice and clean, and we're going to go ahead and start doing the load development, testing at the accuracy window of these Sierra Match Kings, and go from there and see what kind of grouping we're getting. Alright, first shots I'll be doing will be some siders to re-zero the scope, and I'll be aiming at the bottom of that target. So let me get you guys reset up and go from there. Be right back. Okay, so I just re-zeroed my scope for the Sierra Match Kings, and I took one shot with 50.5 grains of Varget. I started at that as a sider because we saw on stage 2 that I was kind of going through a barrel transition around that powder weight. So I'm going to try to see if I can re-verify that. Like I said, I did the first shot here, then I took readjusted the scope, took 2 more, landed over here, and readjusted again, and I got right here. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think we're going through a harmonic transition on the node, anti-node there, and we'll see what happens with the next groups. So let me set you guys up and go from there. So we're going to be testing at the accuracy window now. This is 0.3 grains under what I found at my accuracy window on stage 2. This is 51.1 grains, and we're going to take 3 shots on the top left target. Okay, so I'm letting the barrel cool down, and let's go over the first 2 groups. 51.1, you can see there that got 2 pretty close, and it looks like 1 flew off a little bit. Then 51.4, I got 2 in the same hole, and 1 flew off. So looks like we're on the right track. The vertical dispersion seems to still be in line. Again, we're only at 100 yards, so it's not really going to show up as drastic as it was on 300. But we'll see what happens as we get up in the powder charge. I'll be right back. I'm going to set these. I'm going to let the barrel cool down, and I'm going to set you guys back up and aim you guys at these last 3 targets. Okay, so now we're at 51.7 grains, and we're going to be working on the middle target and see what that does. Okay, real quick before the battery dies on this camera, again, I shot the first set of rounds, 5 rounds. First shot at 50.5 or 4. Readjusted, did 2 shots, readjusted, did 2 shots. Then I tested at 0.2 grains underneath my accuracy window. And this was 51.1. You can see there that shot lower than my initial adjustment. Then the next one was 51.4. I got 2 in the same hole again, pretty close. Next one, 51.7. I got 2 touching, 1 just off. This one gave us the best chrono number. Then I got 52 grains, which gave us a pretty close group there too. And then 52.3 started opening it up. One thing to take note is at the vertical dispersion. As I pan over left, you can see that it's pretty in line, pretty close. Again, we're only at 100, so it's not going to show as drastic as it was at 300. But you can see a noticeable difference from 50.5. So you could definitely tell there was some kind of transition there, and we're starting to get some really close some MOA groups there. So why did this work? Well, let's get back to the reloading bench, and we'll talk about some scientific facts. See if it'll pique your interest, and why I think this method is pretty good when dealing with trying to find that accuracy node in Harmonics. So let's get back to the bench. Let's talk about it and go over some facts. And I'll show you why this method works for me. Be right back. So folks, I believe I made progress on this load development. Let's take a look starting at the 50.5 grain ciders, which I also set my 0 to. The groups weren't impressive at 1.56 inch, but do take notice of the point of impact on the final 0 mark. So here's 51.1 grains of Arget. I measured a 1.99 inch grouping. This powder charge is outside my proven accuracy window on the low side, which starts at 51.3 grains of Arget. However, standard deviation and extreme spread numbers were on the lower side. So here's the grouping for the 51.4 grains of Arget. This is 0.1 grain inside my proven accuracy window of 51.3 grain to 52.1 grains of Arget. Grouping, however, did improve dramatically. Now here's where the accuracy started to really show. At the 51.7 grain powder charge, grouping started to really tighten up, and I measured a 78 thousandths group. However, I had to do a double take on the chrono numbers with a respectable FPS and a standard deviation of only 0.58. Wow, velocity was near to perfect with just 1 extreme spread. Though this was only 3 shots, I'll be verifying this results, and this will be about my load I will further develop. So this next load, the numbers are still looking great, and the grouping did tighten up slightly, but this can also be because of other factors, a better hold or whatever. I did measure a 72 thousandths inch group, and the standard deviation and extreme spread numbers were still in the single digits. Also, this powder charge is 0.1 grain inside my max accuracy window. Alright, so here's the last group. This is 0.2 grains above my proven accuracy window. Grouping did start to open up, and the chrono numbers also started to go up. The brass also did not show pressure issues that we're going to be concerned of. There's a little bit of slight cratering in a flat primer, but nothing out of the ordinary. This load is above listed max with a respectable FPS number around 2850 FPS. So I mentioned about the powder charge of 50.5 grains. being where the barrel is going through a transition. What am I talking about here? Well, this is simply stating that my barrel is going from an antinode to a node in regards to barrel harmonics at the muzzle end of this barrel. So let's further define what this accuracy window is. The shots placed inside this window were in the same vertical dispersion because barrel harmonics at the tip of the muzzle end were at or near resonance, a state where frequency has ceased to modulate at the bore's axis. So before I get into the science to back up these results of this natural occurring phenomenon, I would first like to state this. I'm not an expert on hand loading, reloading, sharpshooting, long-range shooting, physics, or whatever. I'm just an ordinary guy that loves reloading. That being said, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. However, my current profession has led me to further understand frequency, and I'm very blessed for the knowledge and schooling they provided me. But there are some that think I'm just blowing smoke, and to kind of further alliterate, my main goal here is to provide video documentation on my progress as a young handloader. The methods I do show you guys is because either I've tried it before plenty of times and I feel confident that these results can be duplicated. Also, I did not state that this is the best method out there. There are many out there that I have not tried yet. But I strive to stay humble, and there is a lot to learn on reloading. A wise person knows that there is something to learn from everybody. So I urge you guys to kind of give this a try, and I really appreciate all the comments and feedback that you guys provide. And also, thank you for those who keep stating to watch Tyrannosaurus Rex videos. Trust me, anyone who is into long-range shooting and avidly spends time on YouTube like me has spent hours viewing his progress. The man's an absolute beast when it comes to long-range shots, and it's also very well knowledgeable in his profession. So again, thanks for the videos. There are very few that I haven't watched on this channel. So sorry for the rant, and let's get back to harmonics. So without beating a dead horse on the subject of barrel harmonics, if you guys are experts at this, there may be a few things I might mention that might pique your interest. So this is what I got. A fine-tuned load is more than likely means that you found an accuracy node at or very near your muzzle tip. Antinodes are the maximum peak of the frequency modulation. Shots placed at this or around yield poor accuracy. So an accuracy node means that multiple frequencies, also known as harmonics, have modulated at resonance. In layman's terms, that is a point where movement has stopped. This could be best visualized with something called a Chalandi plate. Check out this short clip that I copied from another channel.
The first experiment for the cymatics music video is called a Chladni plate. Now, Chladni plate's basically a metal plate attached to the top of a speaker. There's sand on top of the plate, and you play different tones through the speaker. The plate vibrates, which forms different shapes depending on the frequency of the sound.
Well, we blew up a lot of speakers with the Chladni plate. So there was a lot of experimenting around the Chladni plate, primarily looking at how much volume we can put through there, how much sand to actually put on the plate, and the different shapes of plates and what different patterns would be created because of those shapes. But what we were really testing was what frequencies create the most interesting repeatable patterns, because that was a key point. So we ended up playing pretty much every audio frequency through the plate to see what different shapes it would form.
And for most frequencies, it doesn't really do much, but when it hits a frequency that resonates with the plate, it forms a really nice pure shape. So we found out what those tones were, and those were the tones we used to draw the plate in the video.
So I think that's pretty cool, huh? It's kind of neat to see what frequency does to materials such as that metal plate. So imagine that center ring that was formed when salt was poured on it being the end of your rifle. As frequency increases, the salt begins to move, which is basically showing the antinode, and this can be directly coordinated with your barrel. Your ladder loads shoot at different frequencies, and the ultimate goal is to reach resonance at the muzzle end. Now, how does this correlate with robin round testing? Well, robin round testing is more or less a shortcut to find this resonance. We are able to use vertical dispersion because gravity is a constant. Unless you plan on shooting on other planets. I don't know. Well, there's calculations out there that can show you the best frequency for calculating resonance after first calculating your barrel's rigidity or material's rigidity. That would be boring though, and not so effective since there are many factors that can change rigidity. Heat, barrel material, weather, you name it, there's a lot out there. Let's just call that factor X. So performing the robin round test and finding that accuracy window gets us to a point of resonance quicker. Thus, this reduces the time, material, and load development efforts. There may be a powder charge before that accuracy window that may have given us a better or tighter group, but what I believe makes a good long-range load is not just accuracy, it's consistency. Having a load that's inside the harmonic window, also known as accuracy window, will deem more consistent shots, even when factor X of your, on your barrel changes your rigidity slightly. Well folks, what's next? Well, I can further develop this load and show you guys working with one variable at a time, such as like the seating depth, the primers of brass or whatever, but I think that'll be a little boring. But I had fun showing you guys this, and if there's any questions, feel free to ask below. And on the next video, I'll meet you guys at the 1,000 yard line. We're going to be shooting that load, and we'll see if I can tag that IPSC target. Well guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.